Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Co-Angler's Corner, brought to you by Olson Home Theater. I'm Russell Olson. Today on the show, what I'd like to talk about is what you can do during the off-season to kind of keep your head in the game. Now, this episode is probably going to be more for people in the north that really aren't able to really do any bass fishing during the winter because of the ice. And especially for people like me who don't ice fish during the winter. I just don't like the cold. First of all, one thing you can do right off is start doing your maintenance on your reels. Just checking out your equipment, make sure there's no issues or you have to fix or replace something. If you need to replace a rod tip, something like that, this would be the time of year to take time and take care of those type of things. Another thing that you can do is inventory of your baits. Just kind of look through your baits, kind of see what you need, plan plan what you're going to buy for the season, kind of see what you need for line, kind of just get an inventory of what you have, and basically what you have and what you need. Another thing that you can do to obviously kind of keep your head in your game, if you're a BASS or FLW member, you can make sure you read your Bassmasters, read FLW magazine, or subscribe to like in Fisherman, for example. There's Field and Stream. There's tons of outdoor magazines, and tons of them that are devoted just to specifically to fishing. Another thing you can do is make sure that you go to any outdoor shows in your area. Like where I live here in Madison, at the end of February, first part of March, depending on the year, they have the Madison Fishing Expo every year, which they have great deals on equipment and tackle. Seminars they have are just absolutely outstanding. The first year I went, Kevin Van Dam came to Madison for the Fishing Expo right after he won the Classic for the first time. He gave a great tube fishing seminar. I mean, Larry Nixon's been there, Chad Brower, Gary Beaver, all kinds of great speakers. Several people from In Fisherman have been there, and Linda's Angling Edge. If you're in the Madison area, you should go. The website is madisonfishingexpo.com. You can get all the details there. Something I definitely would suggest you check out if you live in the area. That's kind of my kind of gets my year started in a sense. It kind of gets the blood pumped for me in that aspect. Another thing you can do, like I said, if you don't have a show in the area, another thing you can do, actually just thought of it, YouTube. There's tons, along with my show here, there's tons of, fishing videos on the web. I mean, you could spend, all day and, probably all day, all night for a year and never get through them all. So that's, a few things that you can do to keep your head in the game. Especially, like I said, this show is mostly for people that live in the north that the weather doesn't allow them to fish all year. If you're down south somewhere where you can fish all year, keep fishing. Every chance you get out there, keep fishing. Obviously, this time of year in the winter, it's going to be obviously a lot tougher. But there's going to be those warm days when they're gonna get more active and feed a little bit better. So, and then this will lead us into this episode's Spotlight Bait. Okay, everyone. This episode's Spotlight Bait is going to be the Carolina rig. Now, obviously, the Carolina rig is more of a rig that you can actually use quite a few baits on. Start off here, I'll go through the components of what is entailed in a Carolina rig. First of all, you have your tag line come from your rod, and then you have a sinker. Most of you use an egg type, sinker like this. Some people do use a worm weight like you would a a Texas rig, for example. Most people use an egg sinker similar to the one I have on here. You're usually talking a pretty heavy sinker, anywhere from 3/4 ounce to an ounce. In some cases maybe half ounce, but usually it's a pretty heavy sinker because generally what I like to use this rig for is kind of a search bait, but I'll get into that more in just a moment. But generally I use a pretty heavy sinker on it. Now the next thing up the line here is in this one I've got 2 beads. Basically what the beads are for are making noise. I usually, depending on the situation, I'll have 1, 2, or if it's really clear water, I may not use any, possibly, on occasion. Then your main line is tied to a swivel. One of the things this does, obviously, it prevents line twists and keeps your weight and your beads from going all the way up to the hook. As I was saying, main line tied to the swivel, other end swivel. You've got a tag line here. Most people, keep the tag line on the end here. You're the leader, excuse me. Anywhere from 12 to 36 inches. All depends on the situation, what you're fishing, so on and so forth. And then, obviously, at the end, you've got your hook. Now, some people I have seen or heard of putting like a jerk bait or hard jerk bait or something on instead of a hook, and using a plastic. But most people generally use plastics on this rig. Like during the spring, excuse me. Like during the spring, I'm a huge fan of a lizard on these, especially during the spawn, simply because lizards and they usually are trying to eat the fish eggs after they've been laid during the spawn. And a lizard, like I said, that's something a lizard generally likes to eat on these freshwater lakes. Now, sometimes, especially during the late spring and fall, I like to use a crawfish bait. Crayfish are coming up, and you can really crayfish is another bait you can work through fairly nicely. Make it fairly realistic when you pull it, makes it come up with it, makes a nice realistic action. Sometimes I'll use a plastic worm on this. Really, you could use any type of plastic bait on this you want. All goes back to what time of year it is, your water clarity. Sometimes you could even use a soft floating jerk bait on this. And obviously how high it goes would depend on how high, how long your leader is. You can, like I said before, you can use this really with any type of soft bait that you choose. Like so, for some people they've even used hard baits on them. But the Carolina rig is something that I would like to use on structure or very sparse weed cover. Um, I know a couple years ago I fished with the guy who won the zone tournament on the Madison chain, and he won it on the Carolina rig. Like I said, I like to use it as a as a search bait when I want to use plastic worm, crawfish, whatever. It just works really well for that purpose. I just about the only time I wouldn't use this is in thicker cover or really thick grass, because unfortunately your sinker and your beads are just going to collect weeds, and it's gonna be a problem. Way I like to use it, I generally like to drag it. You can hop it, you can swim it, you can do all that. And I've actually caught fish swimming back and hopping it. But my favorite way to use this is as a dragging bait, just dragging along, trying to like I said, search for active fish. And as far as weather conditions, I honestly I'd use it just about any time, regardless of cold front or anything like that. Like I said, all depends on the conditions of what you have. Obviously, it's a great way to try and find out whether the fish are being active at all or not, especially if you're working them back, dragging back kind of fast. The Carolina rig is a very versatile bait. Oh, and by the way, in case I didn't mention, generally I like to use a heavier sinker on this, like a 3/4 ounce or an ounce. Sometimes maybe a half ounce, but I usually prefer a heavier weight because I'm trying to I'm trying to send this thing into the next county when I'm using this thing. Trying to, like I said, because I generally like to use, but I personally like to use it as search bait, especially when I'm covering, trying to cover a big expanse. If I don't have any real specific targets, or I got, like I said, sparse weeds, structure, that type of thing. Like I said, I just don't like to use it in heavy cover. As far as line, tag line, again, it goes back to what you're fishing. I mean, if you're just fishing a sand flat or with sparse weeds, you can probably get away with 10 and 12 pound cast. If you're using the heavy, like 1 ounce or more, I mean, you may want to go to a 15 pound. Main line, to me, it's not a big deal if it's fluorocarbon or not. But now going to your leader, I would say try and use the lightest line you can get away with the conditions that you're in. I highly suggest fluorocarbon because that just adds that confidence that the fish are not going to see that line when they're looking at your bait. It's just, especially if you're using this in clearer water. Now, by the way, this rig can be used in basically just about any water clarity. And like I said, like I may have touched on already, if you're using it in clear water, you may not want to use the beads, because especially in clear water, fish can be quite spooky. But regardless of water clarity, I definitely recommend fluorocarbon line. Now, as far as the main line, a lot of people like to use braid, and like I said, I mean, you should be able to, on your main line, you should be able to get away with it. If you're using a high-vis line, especially in clear water, you might want to use a longer leader. But generally, most people use a leader length of between 12 and 36 inches. I'm personally not a fan of a long leader. It just kind of makes it hard to cast, and when you're when you want to change rods, and you wind your line around the rod, it can be kind of it can be a little bit of a hassle. But I would say I would say definitely in clear water you might want to use that longer leader. But I would say, me personally, between 12 and 24 inches will cover most situations. Yeah, like I said, clear water, like I said, you may want to use that longer leader. I really probably wouldn't use anything longer than 36 inches. Just, anything longer than that, I personally think it'd become a hassle. But, and that... I think that pretty much covers all the bases in regards to the Carolina rig. Like I said, hopefully, be able to take, what we've talked about today and use it in the back of the boat, and help you catch more fish. That'll be it for today's episode. I hope what we've talked about today will help you be a better angler. I'd like to thank my sponsor, Fergal Books. You mentioned Co-Angler's Corner at checkout, and you'll get a 10% discount. And also, too, if you'd like to make money while helping people change their lives and feed starving kids in America, feel free to email me at olsonhometheater@gmail.com, and I'll personally respond with information. Take care, and wish you luck from the back of the boat this season.